Azerbaycan'da İslam'ı ettiğim olaylar hepimizde oldu. Bulup bu kıtımızı müşüşünün hemimiz toplaşıp yetiştirenlerle. Bizimden Cumhur'un kokmayın bir şeye, işlerinde kege, bazı kişi okumuduğundan kadınlara, vekillerine, yanında kıtımda hemdeydim.
And it's truly my honor to speak today as one of the keynote speakers in this very important conference. And I'm very excited this morning to see from different ethnic and religious groups all representing the suffering of their own peoples. And I'm also very happy to see that some of the representatives came from mainland China, including Beijing and others. So this is a very good opportunity for us all to discuss a lot of very important issues.
And bulup mu yangeldi efendim ki, yıllardan beri her milletin tinçleri ve ulanınki erkiliği üçün devamlı toxtumay. Fakat şu Xitay halkı bilen şu az sanlık milletler.
And I would like to specifically thank, not just to thank, express my very deep appreciation for the work of Dr. Yang Jianli. He has been doing an outstanding work creating such platforms so that people like us, Uyghurs, Tibetans, Mongols, and other ethnic religious groups, Falun Gong, Christians and the Taiwanese, Hong Kongese, all can come together in peace and discuss our issues. And he has been doing this for the past decade and more. So his contribution is just so much. And we cannot thank him enough for this.
Her bir diktatörba yerlerde muşundak immigrantçı, muşundak ahlı çekilmeydiğen milletler oturdaki kiliştirgiçler bu dünyanın taşıyla.
And I believe people like Dr. Yang Jianli plays such an important role for all of us who probably have suspicions, who probably do not have mutual trusts, who probably cannot sit together and discuss the issues in a very calm, democratic way. And the people like him, whether in China or other countries, create such preconditions so that we can calmly and rationally discuss the issues and hopefully find common resolutions.
And Taiwan Foundation,
of course, without the support of NED and the Taiwan Foundation for Democracies, such platforms would not be possible either.
Xitay hükümeti meni bütün dünyada terörist ve men rehberlik kılan teşkilat Dünya Uygun Kurultayını terörist teşkilatı, bölgünçü teşkilatı dep Cumhurda bütün Xitay halkının beşiğe naitli hata teşvikatlar bilen uqturdu.
As you are well aware, the Chinese government has been labeling me and the organization I lead, the World Uyghur Congress, as a terrorist organization, using its powerful government-controlled state media to propagate and perpetuate such lies, not only in China but around the world. And even basically demonize those groups that supported us both financially and morally.
Meyli Tibet'in olsun, meyli Mongol'un olsun, meyli bizden bulay, meyli Tayvan olsun, biz muşundak bir tinçlik bilen halkını yetekleydiğen teşkilatla elbette Xitay hükümeti ve yaşarının tinçliği, Cumhur'un özünün tinçliği ve özümüz yaşavatkan raylarının tinçliği için çok koşuvatımız.
In fact, on the contrary, whether we Uyghurs who are representing the Uyghur groups or Tibetans, Mongols representing their respective peoples, or Taiwanese, Hong Kongese, and Chinese Democrats representing their own suffering people. Actually, on the contrary, we are doing good. We're peacefully struggling for freedom and democracy and human rights. It's completely opposite of the Chinese government propaganda.
And bizni iqtisadi jihatdan her jihatdan qo'llayotgan tashkilotlarni, biz bilan hamkorlashib o'tgan tashkilotlarni mushundaq bir zo'ravonlikning oldini olish uchun bizni ashunda yetaklaydi.
And even those groups or organizations that financially and morally support us, they also believe in the peaceful nature of our cause, and they also have faith. We are the true Democrats that fight for democracy and freedom in a very non-violent and peaceful manner.
Xitay hükümeti yana benim milletim, Uyghur milletine teröristçi, toplancı, hatıl da bütün Xitay Cumhuriyeti'ndeki barlıq Xitay xalqı bilan o'ttir münasibetini yerleştirmeli.
And another thing about Chinese government's propaganda, or rather brainwashing, is they specifically single out Uyghurs as what they term the three evils of terrorism, separatism, and religious extremism. Basically, to demonize the entire Uyghur people in front of the Chinese populace, to justify its heavy-handed, brutal repression of the Uyghur people in our homeland.
Biz Cumhuriyet'teki 56-57 milletke bulutmu, Uygur, Tibet, Mongol herkesine okşamayız. Çünkü biz ne 49. yıl ve 50. yılları Xitay komünistler tarafından tacavuzçılık islahan. Biz o asallık milletler kadar bitirmeyiz.
And it is true there are 55 or 6 ethnic groups in China, but Uyghurs, Tibetans, and Mongols, we are unique out of rest of the ethnic groups because we had our separate independent existence throughout history, and prior to even 1949, we were not part of China. And after 1949, of course, we were forcibly annexed by the People's Republic of China.
Aynı vakitte biz özümüzün zulümümüzde, yerimizde biz köp sallık milletiz.
And furthermore, we were the majority population in our respective territories prior to 1949.
Şunun için Xitay hükümeti bizge Şinjan 55. yılı Şinjan Uygur Abdunum Rayın degan hukukunu berip, Şinjan Uygur Abdunum Rayın sizler özаңlarının taqdirini özаңlar belgileysizler, biz sizlerni azatlık kıldık, biz sizlerni baxtlı kılımız deb belgiledik.
And largely because of that, the Chinese government, in recognition of such political reality, granted the Uyghurs and other groups so-called autonomous region. And in 1955, the Chinese government officially conferred, created what is now the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region.
Lekin Xitay hükümeti nurgun köşmenlerini bizden siminimizge yetkazgan.
But using autonomy, using fake autonomy as a framework, the Chinese government justified the transfer of millions of Chinese population into our home country.
Sizler bilisizler, meyli Mongol olsun, meyli Tibet olsun, meyli Uygur olsun, yavaş bir ahkımın mihman dostlar xalqız.
In fact, Uyghurs, I believe, same goes for the Tibetans and Mongols, they're all very friendly, hospitable, welcoming people.
Lekin Xitay hükümeti aş köşmenlerini ekege vaqtida biz bilen köşmenlerini inak, ittifaq, birlikte birbirini irqi jihatdan kamsitmaydigan siyaset bilen tanishib etmanglar.
But unfortunately, the Chinese government, instead of creating preconditions of peaceful coexistence between the indigenous Uyghurs, Tibetans, and Mongols with incoming Chinese settlers, the Chinese government basically, through its state-controlled propaganda, to discriminate against the so-called minorities, portraying them as backward, barbarous.
Bizim tilimizni, dinimizni ve özümüzün örf adatlarımızı biz yaxşı görülen hareketimizni çekleşke ekeldi ve asimilasyon kılışını tezleştirdi.
And then, of course, the Chinese government gradually restricted our way of life, our religious practices, and demonized our values, and basically began to have political repressions against the Uyghur people instead of truly respecting our rights.
Endi onun üstüne iktisadi jihatdan nomuratlaştırıp, xalqni qulaqlaştırdı.
Then, while depriving the natural resources of the land, the Chinese government effectively reduced all of the so-called ethnic groups into poverty.
Endi biz onu özümüzden hak hukukumuzni özаңlagan Xinjiang Uyghur Abdunum Rayın degan Abdunum qonunni özаңladi qilgan so'zni berdiganlarni o'lim jazosi, turmuga qamoq jazosi bilan tugatdi.
But for those Uyghurs who demand the Chinese government to respect its own laws, whether the Chinese constitution or the very autonomy that it gave to the purported Uyghurs and other groups, those Uyghurs were arrested, imprisoned, tortured, in many cases executed by the Chinese government. as separatists.
Muş 62 yılda meyle 97 yıl olsun, meyle 2009 yıl olsun, meyle onun aldığı olsun, mınlıgan namayışçılar tinçlikten namayışçı çıkanlarını kanlı kırgınçılık bilen bastırıp, olanı terörist toplantılar at koydu.
So when the Uyghurs, like other groups, when they rose up in peaceful protest, whether it was in 1997 or in 2009, the Chinese security forces basically massacred them. Then the Chinese state blamed the Uyghurs as terrorists, separatists, robbers, and arsonists.
Cümleden Uyghur halkının özünün tinçlik bilen, öz kelgen köçmen kıyırındaşları bilen, yoki eşedi birli yaşavatkan halkı bilen bir erkinlik yaşap özünün hakkını talep kılış, hukuk kalmaymışına toşup geldi.
So at the end of 6 decades of China's communist rule in our homeland, and the Uyghurs were deprived of all of their political rights as human beings. Anyone who complained about Chinese policies or brutality is immediately demonized and arrested. So the breaking point for the Uyghurs, has come. Unfortunately, it has come to a point where the Uyghurs, probably other groups as well, could no longer accept the brutality of Chinese rule in those regions.
And üzerine bilsem, Xitay hükümetinin içinde Nartüyle, Cinşeviyen, and milyonlu, digendek naiti çoğun hukukların var.
As you know that once I was a very prominent political figure in China at the Political Consultative Conference, a member of China's Political Consultative Conference, as well as China's People's Congress, and I was also a very successful businesswoman, one of the very wealthiest person in China in the 1990s, one of the few millionaires.
Ben ne için şundak oldum, ben ne için şundak Hristiyanlık bilen Xitay hükümetinin ki parlamentoga, Xitay hükümetinin siyasi kendişige ve Gümüşhanlarının reisliği aşındak üst çıkıp tırmaştığım digende bir aile ayalı. Ben üzem 13 yaş vaxtımda mektep okuştum, mehrum kılıp, sürgün kılınğan ailenin kalısı.
And when I was 13 years old, my entire family was banished by the Chinese communists from the northern area of our homeland to the southern desert areas. As a result, I lost my education, the opportunity to become just a normal lady. But I tried all of my life to improve myself, to learn, to do business, to work hard. At the end, I was able to become a successful business person and later promoted even by the Chinese government in recognition of that as a political figure. But I was hoping to do some positive change for the Uyghur people.
Ben Xitay hükümetine kılıç karşı çıkış niyetim yok. Ben Xitay hükümetinin aşırı deybiyosu bulap, Cinşeviyen bulap, aşının katmış arkalı merkezge halkın oturduğu buluvatkan Şarkı Türkistan'daki ahvalını yetkizip, Şarkı Türkistan'da yaşavatkan her millet halkını tinçlik ve ittifaklık ekilmede kuraş kıldı.
I had never had the thought of opposing the Chinese government when I was a member of China's different conferences, national legislature. And I always thought that if I could become a bridge by bringing up the issues, the sufferings of the Uyghur people to the central government leadership, then they would understand the pain and the suffering of the Uyghurs and some policy failures. Then they would eventually understand and change the situation on the ground.
Ben Xitay hükümetiye Şarkı Türkistan'da yaşavatkan meyli Kazak olsun, meyli Kırgız olsun, meyli Özbek olsun, meyli Tatar, meyli Mongol, kırındaşlarımızdan ve bizden beşimizde kelgen külpetlerini yaxşı düşendirip, zoravallıktan Şarkı Türkistan'da kelip çıkmasını, Xitay hükümetinin siyasetinin bir yaxşı oluşunu kayıt katıp oturup koydum. 5 yıl, yani ikinci saylamda 10 yıl tuttum, ben davamlı aldığımda benim dipimini anlaydığı adem düşündüm.
During my two-term, 10-year stay at both conferences, national legislature in China, I repeatedly raised the issues faced by not only the Uyghurs, but the Kazakh, Kyrgyz, Uzbek, and other groups faced a lot of repression from the Chinese government in the region. Because for the 10 years, I believe the Chinese government would listen and eventually listen to the suggestions and eventually change the policies. I was always told that I was doing a good job reporting those issues to them, but at the end of the day, nothing was changed on the ground.
Bunu bugünkü gün kelgende Uyghur halkının karakterini.
But because of Chinese government's repressive and assimilationist policies, we could see the same thing happening with the Uyghurs as it was happening to